Dr. Abel Cunningham here, Bigfoot scientist. And one of the things that I get asked a lot as the world's leading Bigfoot scientist is, how can I teach people some of the things that I know about Bigfoot, and specifically, how can people who are just starting to get interested in Bigfoot come up to speed really quickly? So what I've done is I've prepared a little PowerPoint presentation that I'm calling Bigfoot 101, where I'll sort of take you through the basics, what you need to know about Bigfoot. So let's jump in. So first off, agenda. What are we going to learn about today? So talk about what is Bigfoot, obviously. We'll talk about why Bigfoot is most definitely real. We'll talk about how Bigfoot avoids detection. I think that's one of the big questions a lot of people ask right off the bat. And then very important, we'll talk about how you can protect yourself from Bigfoot attacks. Bigfoot can be dangerous. I'll give you a quick run through of some of the key names in the Bigfoot industry and talk about sort of who's who in the zoo. And then we'll talk a little bit about where you can find more information on Bigfoot. So what is Bigfoot? A large ape-like creature, lives known primarily for being highly elusive. I think everyone would agree with that statement. And Bigfoot primarily lives in the forest. If you read some of the encounters documented by the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, BFRO, on their website, Bigfoot's occasionally spotted behind the Home Depot, sometimes on a soccer field, things like that. But for the most part, Bigfoot primarily lives in the forest. That's known to be his primary habitat. Estimates on the size of Bigfoot are kind of all over the map, and I think there's a reason for that. You look at even just dogs as an example. You can have everything from a 15-pound Chihuahua all the way up to a 200-pound Mastiff. That's a huge, huge difference. Bigfoot, the differences are not that extreme, but I think there are variances in size depending on the geographic location that the Bigfoot is in. For example, I'm based in New Hampshire, hence 603 Bigfoot. And the Bigfoot that we see here in the Northeast tend to be a lot smaller than the ones in the Pacific Northwest, and it makes sense if you think about it. We don't have elk out here, we don't have mule deer, we don't have some of the large prey animals. I mean, even fish like salmon, that Bigfoot would almost certainly feast upon. So it just stands to reason that the Bigfoots here in the Northeast would be a little bit on the smaller end of this range, but in that prime habitat, they can grow up to 10 feet tall and weigh as much as 800 pounds, some folks have estimated. Bigfoot is omnivorous, like most advanced animals, bears, even wolves, coyotes, humans. It'll basically eat anything he can get his hands on. Common prey animals include deer, turkey, rabbits, things that you would expect. Bigfoot, despite avoiding anything related to humans for the most part, Bigfoot loves to eat apples that are grown by humans. It's a weird sort of contradiction, but that's, Bigfoot for you. I think, if you watch some of Todd Standing's films, Bigfoot gobbles up those apples like they're crack. So, one of those things. Bigfoot also loves beef jerky. Who doesn't really? And pepperoni pizza. I personally documented that in a couple of videos that are out there on my YouTube channel. Other names for Bigfoot include Sasquatch, you probably know that. Yeti also likes to be called Daryl. So why is it almost a certainty that Bigfoot is real? And I think this is the most straightforward, logical way to explain it. I mean, you have so many smart, hardworking Bigfoot researchers, who, some of whom I'll tell you about in a few slides here, that tell you that Bigfoot exists. They tell you that on TV, they tell you that in books and movies. And then you also have the many thousands and thousands of witness encounters from just regular folks. So you add it all up, and it's just not possible that all these people are lying to you, or making it up, or in on the joke. So there just has to be something out there. they can't just all be making it up. No way. So how does Bigfoot avoid detection? Again, like I said, most people are just starting to get interested in this subject. It's one of the first questions they ask. Well, why hasn't there been any good trail camera footage? Why is every Bigfoot video blurry? Why haven't we found a dead body? Blah, 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 right? Well, start off with they're super intelligent. I mean, I would estimate that they're at least as smart as the average American, and we all know how smart Americans are on average. Just look at the politicians that we elect. And, in addition to being just as smart as the average American, Bigfoot has highly advanced senses and is very much in tune with nature and applies both of those things in a combination to avoid detection when he wants to be undetected. In addition, Bigfoot has the ability to communicate with animals and or at least understand the other animals' languages. So a good example, a simple example of that most people could relate to is if you've ever been out in the woods, you'll likely hear jays or crows squawking in the distance, and that's because they're alerting their family, friends, other animals that there's a human nearby, look out. And so that's a sign that we can pick up on, but other animals have similar signs, and some people believe even plants release scents with a T, not senses, in response to distress. Person steps on a branch, pushes a branch out of the way, the tree releases a smell. And we as humans can't pick up on that. Dogs can pick up on that. Anyone who's done any tracking with dogs knows that. So it's highly likely that Bigfoot has that same capability. And then it's also been documented that Bigfoot has the ability to sense radiation and electromagnetic energy emitted from electronics that we would typically be using to try to video Bigfoot. So that is right there a problem. He can detect the infrared beams coming off the game cameras. He can detect the gamma rays coming off your cell phone. So if Bigfoot doesn't want to be videoed, it's going to be very easy for him to avoid putting himself into those sorts of situations. So there are some other theories out there. I put them in this other category because I'm not necessarily endorsing these theories, but some folks have said that Bigfoot is interdimensional and can leverage portals to go from one dimension to another. I think that's a little bit out there, to be honest. But anything's possible, So who am I to say? The next thing is some people believe that Bigfoot is an extraterrestrial. It comes from another planet and occasionally goes back to that other planet to visit, which would explain some of the spottiness and the sightings and ability to seemingly disappear from detection. Maybe he's getting beamed up to the mothership. So that's another possibility. Other folks talk about that Bigfoot has the ability to become a bit invisible on demand. Whether this is actual invisibility or it's something more like chameleons do, not really sure, but it's also a possibility that's within the realm of possibility. And then the last one, which we're just going to cross right off the list, is that Bigfoot doesn't exist. I mean, that's ridiculous, as we've just been talking about. So this is an important one. I suggest you pay attention. How to keep yourself safe from Bigfoot. First, I would recommend you study the missing 411 phenomenon. That's a phenomenon created by D.P. Dave Paulides, who we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. And specifically, pay attention to the eerily similar circumstances under which these cases occur. So some of those circumstances include being outside, being near rocks, being near trees, being near water, and when there's weather outside. So since Bigfoot is a prime suspect in these disappearances, prime right up there with the lizard folk and UFOs and falling off the flat earth, but for the purposes of this discussion, one of the prime suspects, I would just suggest you avoid putting yourself in those situations entirely. Try to avoid going outside, especially near rocks, near trees, water. And if there's weather outside, forget about it. Stay home, stay safe, don't get snatched by Bigfoot. If you're a little bit more dedicated, perhaps you have to be outside near rocks, trees, and water. Then I would suggest enrolling in a Bigfoot self-defense course taught by yours truly. I'll flash up a flyer on the screen when I edit this video. And the other thing, this is more of a group program. We've launched the Bigfoot Awareness, Resistance, and Education Program, or BEAR for short. The goal of that is to keep people safe from Bigfoot. And we can tailor this format to a classroom environment, a work environment, bachelor parties, what have you. And it's essentially the basics on how to be aware of your surroundings, how to resist Bigfoot attacks, and how to educate people about the dangers of Bigfoot. So that's the goal of the Bigfoot Awareness, Resistance, and Education Program. You can reach out to me if you would like more information on running one of those workshops. So now we'll transition into who's who in the Bigfoot world. First up, we have Matt Moneymaker. He's a rotund Bigfoot researcher. Starred in the Bigfoot show Finding Bigfoot. Never actually found Bigfoot, but I don't hold that against the guy. When he's not running around the woods with TV cameras following him around, you can book an expedition through the BFRO where you're guaranteed an experience. It'll only cost you a few $100. So, I mean, given that he's generously taking people out in the woods and probably just covering his expenses on the expedition with a few $100. It's clear that he's not in this for the money, despite his name. Then we have Dr. Jeff Meldrum. He has a PhD, so he's got to be credible. I think he's, other than myself, he's the only PhD involved in the Bigfoot game. And he will, similarly, he'll appear on any TV show, movie, what have you, for a small fee of several $1,000s. So given that, he's practically donating his time, I mean, what's a few $1,000s to a tenured professor? I think it's also clear that he's not in it for the money either. He's definitely a highly credible, unbiased thought leader, really, in the Bigfoot community. Next, we have VP Dave Politis. Let's talk a little bit about him. He's the one who invented the missing 411 phenomenon. That was really an inspirational story because prior to creating that phenomenon, he was fired from the police force for committing fraud using police department resources. And who hasn't done something like that? No big deal, right? But a guy's got to go out and earn a living somehow. So now he bravely makes videos and writes poorly researched books that exploit the deaths of real people. So he's really what I would call a YouTube hero. He's an inspiration to all the other folks out there who've had a setback like committing fraud. Next up, we have Mariah Mayer. She's just a total Bigfoot babe. I don't know what else I need to say. She was on Expedition Bigfoot. Just look at her. Then we have Todd Standing. Now, this guy's the real deal. He's captured some of the best footage of Sasquatch I've ever seen in my life. A lot of the other Bigfoot researchers out there will say he's a hoax, he's used CGI, blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of nonsense, really. They're just jealous. I applaud Todd for the great work that he's done with his video captures, the YouTube content that he puts out obsessively. So he's the real deal. If you want the real scoop on Bigfoot, I would highly recommend watching his stuff. Next up, we have Canadian Steve Ishtal. He's not as dumb as he looks in this picture. He reads witness accounts bravely on YouTube. He bravely spreads the words from these witness accounts that, despite being written in a very similar manner and a similar format, they're definitely not made up by him. I mean, he says he gets them in email from readers all across the continent and across the globe. one of the things you should know about his character is he's highly involved in politics. Spreading the word about the dangers of vaccines and things like that. And he would want nothing more than for the January 6 events that took place in the U.S. to repeat themselves in Canada. So true patriot, true hero, and another thought leader of the Bigfoot community. Then we have Richter. Richter really is as dumb as he looks, and that's saying something. He's just a total fraud. He's got a shitty YouTube channel where he tries to discredit honest, hardworking Bigfoot researchers. I personally exposed him with a video on my YouTube channel. He's not even being honest about his sexuality. So I don't know what you can expect to believe from this guy. Just a total fraud and dumber than he looks. Then we have save the best for last, Bob Gimlin. So you've probably heard of the Patterson-Gimlin footage. That's the footage that goes back, way back. You probably saw it on Unsolved Mysteries or something as a kid. It's sort of the original Bigfoot film, and definitely not at all a hoax. Bob is very well endowed, likes sharing the love with the lady fans. So another great guy, another pillar of the Bigfoot community. And, that just, I think, builds up to the argument of how can you not believe in Bigfoot if these are the people who are telling you that Bigfoot is real and showing you the evidence? I mean, highly credible, highly intelligent people who, despite their lack of any formal training or education, are clearly the ones who are out there, telling it like it is. Last slide. Just some conclusions, some things to think about. I think we've learned today that Bigfoot is obviously a totally real ape-like creature that lives in the forests across North America, potentially other areas. He's able to avoid detection using combination of superior intelligence and advanced sensory perception capabilities. And really, there's only a handful of people, such as the ones we talked about earlier, highly qualified despite their lack of education or training, but they're out there with their feet on the ground, doing the work, and they wouldn't be doing that if Bigfoot wasn't real. Lastly, for your own safety, you should avoid putting yourself in situations where you might get snatched by Bigfoot, such as being outside, being near rocks, trees, water, and especially if there's weather outside. Stay safe. And if you really want to stay safe, you can protect yourself by joining the Bigfoot Awareness, Resistance, and Education Program. We have shirts that we sell. We also have Break for Bigfoot bumper stickers that we sell on our Etsy shop, just to remind other folks out there to be cautious about Bigfoot in the roadways. If you'd like more information on any of those, you can visit my website, www.603bigfoot.com. It's the place where we document the truth about Bigfoot in the Granite State, New Hampshire. And that's all I had for today. I thank everyone for listening. Appreciate the time and consideration. And if you found this video helpful and informative, please feel free to hit like and subscribe, and or check out my website, 603bigfoot.com. Thanks, everyone. This is Abel Cunningham, world's leading Bigfoot scientist, signing off.